So I used to live right there. You know, come here and then walk down to the storm cellar, see this building that had been empty for years. And we always thought, gosh, somebody should do something with that building. And then it was for sale. So it's one of those things where just like the story of how I came to rent the current storm cellar location, it was pure providence. We had offered the guy an amount of money and he said no. We said, well, if you would ever take that, let us know. And then, just sort of given up on the project. Months later, I pulled it up on my phone to show somebody, and then, it was still listed at the same price, still too high. And then the next morning, I pulled up my phone and it refreshed the page, and they had lowered the price below what I had offered him. So we went and put an offer on it that day. It taught me a lot about property development. I have to be careful not to do what I did with the grocery video, which is relive all of the trauma and uncertainty of it. It's really easy when you're doing, I think, any kind of creative project, but something this big, like as soon as you're done with it, you're like over it. Like I did that, I'm moving on, and to only remember the things I would have done differently or the things that didn't turn out, as opposed to the things that did work, which is, it was financially successful, and it created space for 2 new restaurants that probably wouldn't have existed without it. So this is a weird thing, but Moscow used to have a really big mail order like cult religion in it called Psychiana. Frank Robinson of Robinson Lake Park was the guy who founded it, and he was just a crazy good copywriter in the kind of like new thought genre. It was like Oprah Winfrey's The Secret, but right after World War II. And this was his building, except that the building was in the lot here. So eventually they built these 2 buildings on either side, and then they knocked down the original building. We did a lot of trying to figure out if we could turn it into like a full mixed-use development, like the one that I'm working on now, where there's residential and commercial, and then like retail on the ground floor. And it taught me a lot about how to navigate city code. Mainly, they'll tell you whether it works or not. They won't actually tell you how to make it work. So they'll say yes or no, but they won't say, well, what you could do is this. They don't actually help you solve the problem. Like all projects of this scale, it just got bigger and bigger and more stressful, and I was putting like crazy weeks into it. Yeah. But it turned out it was financially viable. We sold it as soon as we were done with it so that we could move on to other things. Yeah. In a world where I had more money, I could have held on to it as an asset, but we were really happy to have our first property development be in the black. That's really the measure of those things, and so by that measure, it was a success. Just live. Let's go to the beach. Let's have a dream come into. Take me by the hand. Nuts, because I remember what this place looked like before. Yeah. You would walk by it not even acknowledging its existence, but somehow it was an eyesore at the same time. Yeah, and it definitely fits with that, seeing something that people are just looking past and seeing the potential behind it, and then unlocking that potential in a way that becomes obvious to other people in retrospect. Mm-hmm. Like at the time, it was like, wait, what are you doing? How far up Main Street are you? Like this felt like it was in the hinterlands. Because we lived here, we got to see the change in the traffic patterns. Like we used to be able to find parking easily at our apartment, and then when we opened this, it was hard to find parking. It also exposed me to something different, which is everything we had done up to that point had been things that other people were not interested in. Just like distinctly, if you want to do that, good for you, man. But this sort of, everybody was like, oh, wow. It created the public perception that I was a big shot and could do things. That was really uncomfortable for me because I was used to trying to share, like the vlogs, trying to share as much of every project I did that I could. And then all of a sudden people assumed that because I was doing this that I wasn't poor. We were still, I think, below the federal poverty level. It's weird to think that you can do something so public profile and not be rich. We were able to involve the businesses really early on, and so it became very, very collaborative. Like I'm not responsible for anything other than the bathrooms inside the Humble Burger space from a design standpoint. Gabe was signaling to me.
Hi, Gabe.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, I didn't need anything, man.
We're just, just reflecting on this building.
I mean, wow, the corner door. I do remember being involved with some of the renovation of the floors in particular, and I mean, it was super cool. Seeing it become what it is, pretty impressive, I would say.
That beam was a seismic concern.
Yeah.
Make sure that if there's an earthquake, it doesn't fall down.
I've definitely seen people who look like they're in the construction field come in and they're like very confused by the purpose, why we
I was confused why I had to do it, but.
Wait, are you like serious? Like, we don't get air earthquakes here, right?
I mean,
have we?
Don't.
One of the things that you had mentioned to me earlier is that it was the most traumatizing thing you'd ever done to yourself.
Yeah. It stretched me in ways that I didn't care to be stretched. And it also made me realize the truth of the opportunity cost stuff. Are we crossing? We're going back. That by choosing to do something like it's hard to do a meaningful project like starting a business or developing a building in less than 2 years. So every time you choose to commit to if you're filming a feature film, that's a 1 year, maybe 2 year commitment, depending on how long you plan. So you have to like your projects enough to sustain you through a solid 2 years of work, like well beyond the initial excitement of the project. And it also brought home the whole opportunity cost thing that when you choose to do something, you're choosing to do a lot of other things that you might not know about. So I think at the time I had a sense that I was doing one for love and one for money. But all of the things I did just for money didn't make a lot of money. And the things that I did for love did all right. So this was the last thing that I did where I had the mindset that it was one for me, one for them. and it became more how do we figure out how to turn our passion projects into things that allow us to do more projects? Mm-hmm. So that was a lesson of that project. As soon as you have to design public restrooms, it makes you realize that you've never paid attention to anything in your life. How many times have I been in a restaurant bathroom Now I have to make the decisions of how to design a restaurant bathroom, and I can't remember a single feature of any bathroom I've ever been in. The Daily News, when I did the Anchor building, said in the paper that I was the magpie of Moscow. And when Laura and I did Hansel and Gretel, she referred to us in the paper as like Moscow's power couple. And
Laura referred to you that way?
No.
I was like,
sorry.
That seems uncharacteristic.
Amelia, who wrote the article. And it would just, that sort of stuff is so, I guess it's flattering, but it's also really
Right.
It's a weird.